I'm going to say no. I look at a lot of these teams, man, some draft picks, right? Free agent signings, and I don't think so. As I look at the last couple of years, since the best record since 2022, you got the Chiefs at 40 wins, 11 losses, and the Eagles at 39 wins, 12 losses.
Good teams.
And we beat them by a lot of points. I just don't see anybody, catching us. I thought the Bills could maybe do some different things in free agency and draft picks, and they didn't do that. The Lions, right? You lose your coordinator, maybe you bring in some more. I didn't see it. So to ask me if you're getting closer to the champs, I think we are better. I think the guys that we lost, we replaced. We're still young. You got something what you think. I mean, we were so good, I felt like we didn't need to draft anybody. And we got a hell of a play.
What?
Being honest.
Have you seen how many defensive starters you've lost? You had to go all defense, which is how we did.
I'll just tell you this, man, and I hear you. The backers that we do have, I feel comfortable about them. That's why we didn't bring no other cornerback in.
I like it.
Right? Ringo, we're going to go with Ringo. And I also think that we are so good right now that we didn't really have to draft anybody. We'll see when the game comes.
The people that they drafted, the Eagles hit on.
Earn the right to talk like that.
We the champs. But before you go, if you just look at not even us being the champs, not even bragging about the champion stuff we got. I don't worry about that. But if you look at this, the rosters though, you telling me if we didn't go out there and just to draft some players and all that, we still want to have a top 3 roster in the league?
Well, the beautiful part is it's irrelevant because they did.
Yeah.
And the players that they did draft, they hit on.
Yeah.
The Eagles had a few vacancies, and nearly all of their vacancies they filled. Mekhi Becton out the door playing for the Chargers now. They traded Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. They acquired a player in Green who will likely start at right guard. Nakobe Dean, he's hurt. He messed up his knee at the end of last year. Well, Oren Burks stepped up, had double-digit tackles in the Super Bowl. Problem, Oren Burks, he's gone on to the AFC North. Insert Jahad Campbell, linebacker, first-round pick out of Alabama.
I just had dinner with him last weekend.
Oh, great player. Great player.
Great player.
Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, he's out the door, went to the Texans in a trade. Insert Andrew Makuba out of Texas to start at safety. Yeah. So the players that the Eagles lost, they have instantly replaced. The only one that you haven't yet is Darius Slay, but remember, you got a Georgia cornerback, national championship in Ringo, who's been in the league for a couple years now.
They added Adoree Jackson.
Yes, but even still, and I believe he'll probably be a depth player, still trying to figure out what Adoree at Jackson, where he's at this stage in his career. But nonetheless, everybody they lost on a championship team, I believe you've replaced with championship caliber players, with championship caliber talent, with championship caliber ability. So I don't think anybody's closed the gap on the Eagles. The Eagles beat the Commanders by 55 to maybe 31,
it's something
21.
Like that. It's something like that.
They beat the brakes off the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Shout out to Xavier Worthy for late touchdowns. Beat the brakes off the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Eagles beat everybody down. So I don't think anybody's closed the gap, Chase.
So
yeah, Chase.
When you say close the gap, we're just talking about 1 year?
Yeah.
Right? So you don't think the Chiefs or the Bills or the Ravens can't compete with the Eagles? You think the Eagles are that much better than everybody else? Because that's what I got out of this question is there's a huge gap. Do you think there's a big gap?
I'll say 10 points, 10-point gap between all those teams.
Okay, so I don't think there was a perceived gap at all, especially between the Chiefs and the Eagles. I understand you can say all you want about they beat them down and stuff, and they did. And they deserved to win. They were easily the best team, one of the best teams we've seen really in the last 5 years. Just top to bottom, offensively, defensively. Let me go to the Philadelphia Eagles defense. You said the guys they replaced. Okay, they lost.
Real fast, I'm going to let him finish, but I just got to interject real fast. He's saying that this is one of the best teams in the last 5 years when they literally set the record for the most points scored ever in the playoffs. And in the final 2 games, the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl, they hung 95 points, which would have been even more if they actually kept trying to score, which was also a record in the history of the NFL. And so we want to say that this is only the best team in the last 5 years. We're just going to reduce it to since 2020. You know how of absurd of a statement that is to be historical like that? The Kansas City Chiefs win, and it's this is the greatest team in the history of the universe. They're comparing Patrick Mahomes to Secretariat, and the Philadelphia Eagles absolutely dominate. And it's this is a pretty good team, one of the better teams we've seen in the last 5 years.
A lot of stars. They lost a lot of key players. Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Milt Williams got a huge deal in New England. Thought he was a good player. Shady, I got it. Darius Slay, one of your leaders back there. James Bradbury, obviously hurt. C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I understand you're getting players, but you can't always count on rookies to come in and hit on draft picks right away. Now, if anyone could do it, it's Howie. Because I believe that Howie drafts better than probably anyone other than Brett Veach that we've seen. But for me, it's the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs and the Eagles are right there. You can't discount what Patrick Mahomes has done his first 7 years as a starter. He's been to the Super Bowl 5 times. He's won 3 of them. And the other 2 years he's lost in the AFC Championship game. So at worst, he's in the AFC Championship game. He's probably going to meet the Eagles in the Super Bowl again, would be my guess. You can't discount them at all. And when you look at the last 3 years, and that's what we did, right? The Chiefs 40 wins, Eagles 39. The playoff record for the Chiefs, 9-1 in the last 3 years. And the one loss, obviously, was the Eagles. They beat them in 2022 in the championship. So I don't think there's a huge gap. Like, do I think the Eagles roster right now is better? Yeah, but we're forgetting about Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid.
Oh, we ain't forget about them.
No, I'm just saying, by the way you guys are talking a little bit, it's like they're great, and I don't think there's a huge gap. Obviously, like the top of the mountain right now is the Eagles.
They are great.
But I don't think there's a gap.
They're great. Andy Reid's the best coach of all time for me, right? And Patrick Mahomes, he's in a GOAT conversation. He's still playing.
No doubt.
So we're not taking anything for that.
Go.
But all that stuff you just said and all that, they did get spanked on. I've never seen anybody whip them like that.
No doubt.
Have you ever seen anybody whip them like that?
No.
The only time I've seen them get whipped like that is with the Bucks.
Yeah.
When they played the Bucks, I was on that team. Guess what? Both of their starting tackles were out.
Yeah.
So we knew they were going to get pressure.
And it wasn't even like that, 2-5.
Man, and I ain't never seen nobody make Pat look regular like that. So as much as we talk about all that stuff they did in the past, and he is a great quarterback, we watched the Super Bowl all together.
And I just think one game isn't mean there's a
Not like that, though. That was
the one game.
And
Okay. This is always tough, man. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, they're all just having the wrong conversation. I mean, I don't care what you did in 22 or 23 or 2019. Like, none of that actually matters. This Chiefs team is different than what they were in 22. This Eagles team is different than what they were in 22. Different from what they were in 23. And it's different from what they were in 24. Same thing for the Chiefs. There's some overlap, of course. So, like, you using that past as a reference really just does not make sense. And making the blanket statement, I think the Chiefs and the Eagles are going to be in the Super Bowl again. Dude, I'm sorry. You could be the biggest Chiefs fan and the biggest Eagles fan to just, like, say that before anything else happens. If football had, injuries happened a lot less and you could be confident, okay, there's a great chance that everyone's going to be healthy in the playoffs and there were best of 7 series, then I could understand. It's a little bit more predictable because you're like, all right, the Eagles are going to be healthy and, who's going to beat them in a best of 7 series, like it would just, you can make those types of blanket predictions. Like we were able to do years ago where we knew, yep, it's going to be Cavs and the Warriors. Like you just know it because again, the chances of having like a devastating injury is a little bit lower a lot bit lower in basketball compared to football. And then a 7-game series, so you're not going to get too many surprises necessarily. But just this automatic assumption that, either of these teams is just going to get to the Super Bowl, that's just not the easiest thing to do, quite frankly. But, and this whole idea, though, has anyone closed the gap on the Eagles? It's not so much that they close the gap, that a team is that any of these other teams are closing the gap to the Eagles. The question is more, is there room for the Eagles to get even better? And is there room for the Eagles to go a little bit backwards? For me, the way how I kind of look at it is this team was already historic, as I already addressed, right? Hanging 95 points, most points in playoff history. Saquon Barkley, most rushing yards in NFL history, etc., etc., etc. And so my whole thing is like, you can't expect going into this season that Saquon Barkley is going to break the record again. This defense was so unbelievably amazing and so special. Are you expecting them to be able to be exactly how they were last year as well? You have to imagine that there's going to be some backslide because this team was so great as they dominated in this. I mean, it was literally one of the most dominant performances in Super Bowl history, in football history, quite frankly. I mean, it was so devastating, and we know that. And it would have continued to be so if, like, they actually continued to try to do that. But, the Chiefs are scoring touchdowns while Nick Sirianni's getting a bath in Gatorade. To think that you're going to be able to repeat that again, it's a hard thing to be able to do, right? Like, when you reach the mountaintop, it's hard to be able to be like, well, let's now go do that again. So the question is are the Eagles still the best team in the NFL, even when they're not historic? Because you typically are only making history once, right? If we thought about it, what are the odds if the Eagles played in the Super Bowl again? What are the odds that they now break their own record for scoring even more points in the playoffs? You know, in the NFC Championship game, they score 75 points instead of 55. Right? It's unlikely to happen. Even if they played the Chiefs again, you could be the biggest Eagles fan and fully believe that they would win. You would probably not think that they would beat them as badly as before, where Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs didn't even cross like the 50-yard line until the third quarter, you know, whatever the heck it was. That's probably unlikely to happen again. No matter how dominant, no matter how great you think this Eagles team is or was. So you have to kind of just bake that into this conversation. So let's say that doesn't happen. Let's say Patrick Mahomes, he's being harassed, and instead of an interception, he throws the ball and it just like goes over everyone's head, right? Or, you know, because what was it? 2 interceptions and the fumble. Let's just use the 2 big interceptions with Cooper DeJean and oh my God, and Bond, right? There's an absolute world where Bond's diving for it and it hits his hands and he hits the ground and it bounces, you know, and he's not able to secure it. Perfectly possible. There's a possibility where Cooper DeJean gets the interception, but he gets tackled, and now he gets tackled. Let's just say he gets tackled at like the 25 or whatever, and now the Eagles they score a field goal, right? Like that's totally in the realm of the possibility to happen, right? Like that's now they put up less. So it's just like, you know, do they still win? The answer is yes, right? Because the Eagles were that dominant, were that special. So from my viewpoint, it's really more about the Eagles closing the gap on themselves only because they were so amazing, so great. What else, you know, like what else is there? It's like if you go undefeated, right? Let's say the Patriots went undefeated that year and they won the Super Bowl, et cetera, et cetera. Are we to say that they're going to go undefeated again? You know what I'm saying? Like that's really what it gets boiled down to. I should have said that at the top. Imagine if the Eagles went undefeated, because they essentially did in this version of their specialness. They had their undefeated season. I mean, you can't ask for a better NFC Championship game and a better. What was the score of the Super Bowl? 24-0 at halftime, 28-0, whatever it was. I mean, like, you know, a 30-6 at one point. You can't ask for anything greater than that. You know, you saying that next year they're going to beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl 55-0, right? So like you have to imagine it's going to be a little bit less. So the gap is on the Eagles to fall back on. And it's a compliment on how special they were the year before. And I encourage Eagles fans to not be what Chiefs fans did in the years past, where there was just this automatic assumption, oh, but we got Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Our season doesn't start until the Arrowhead Invitational. And it's like, okay, sure, whatever you say. Like that's always nonsense. It really is. It's always nonsense. And truthfully, the Eagles have to play pretty well-run, well-coached teams in the NFC, unlike Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs had to do. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, Harbaugh, ridiculous coaching in the conference championship game. You know, the Buffalo Bills, many times completely unprepared to actually go against the Kansas City Chiefs. The Philadelphia Eagles have to go against Sean McVay, Shanahan, Dan Quinn, and Cliff Kingsbury. Like those are well-run, high-quality teams and operations. Something that, quite frankly, the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens have not been. So you know, I think that's harder to go up against. If you said who would you rather go up against, Sean McVay or Harbaugh with the Ravens, I'm picking Harbaugh every single day. Sean McDermott or McVay. Sean McDermott. His defense gives up 30 points a game every time he plays the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. You know, I mean, Fangio 1 year with the Eagles is able to absolutely dominate them in the Super Bowl. And that's kind of my point, right? You saw what the Philadelphia Eagles were able to do to the Kansas City Chiefs. They were able to beat the Chiefs in ways that none of those other teams were even close to able to do. The Bills, the Ravens, the Bengals, etc. That's what made it so special. That's what made it so like, look what the Eagles just did. Look what the Eagles just did. And that's because there's such a massive advantage, especially in coaching, with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes compared to Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, et cetera, with Spags, Andy. I mean, it's such a mismatch when it gets boiled down to it. It really is. I mean, look at the game plan for the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Buffalo Bills, and then look at the game plan for the Buffalo Bills versus the Kansas City Chiefs. It's just night and day, man. It really is. It's just absolute night and day. Look at the game plan for the Baltimore Ravens against the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game in 2023. Just absurd. Literally absurd. Look at the game plan for the Philadelphia Eagles against the Kansas City Chiefs in the literal Super Bowl. An absolute masterclass. An absolute dominant masterclass. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a fascinating year. I think like anything, especially when you're great, especially when you're special, like the Philadelphia Eagles are and have been, so much of it will come down to health, which, we can obviously always say that, but it's just like this team is great and this team will be great. But it's just like, is Saquon Barkley healthy? Did Lane Johnson go down? Is Jalen Hurts fully healthy? Right? Like that's more probably what it comes down to. Plus, leave the door open for again, Saquon Barkley is probably not going to rush for over 2,000 yards or whatever, right? It's just probably not going to happen. There's probably going to be a little bit of a learning curve bringing in a new offensive coordinator. That's to be expected. The Eagles fans definitely know that because they experienced that firsthand in 23. That, there could be some issues. Not saying that it's going to happen like 23, but you're not going to maybe be able to easily pick up where you left off. And maybe you do. And if you do, then that's, credit to the hiring and credit to the Philadelphia Eagles. But those are legitimate questions that it's okay to acknowledge and admit and be like, yeah, we got to wait and see how this all unfolds. I think that's totally fair. But in terms of, just to kind of say it one last time, in terms of closing the gap on the Eagles are in the driver's seat in terms of where is that gap being closed. It's more like the Eagles were so high. Are they going to backslide just because you're expecting Steph Curry to put up 50 points every single game? Of course not. So it's just where do they slide back down? And considering how much they slide back down, how much still further are they away from the rest of the pack? But this will be the very last thing I say. And this is the problem with football compared to something like basketball. The whole closing of the gap and guaranteeing things. Football is football, man. You could be clearly the best team in the NFL. You could clearly be one of the greatest teams in the history of the NFL. Like the Patriots learned, and you still lose. Because it's football. It's one game. One pass that could have been an absolute walk-in touchdown, for whatever reason, it just goes off the fingertips. A fumble that normally would have rolled out of bounds. Instead, it takes a weird bounce and bounces right into the defensive player, and they're able to bring it in for a touchdown. It's just, that's how it is. There could be a huge gap. The Eagles are clearly the better team against the Kansas City Chiefs. If the Eagles played the Kansas City Chiefs 100 times, I'm so confident the Chiefs win at least one of those. Okay, they win at least one of those games. Definitely, probably more. And so the Eagles fans were just very fortunate that was not that game. It was not that game, right? It wasn't the game where Saquon Barkley twists an ankle, where Jalen Hurts, fumbles the ball. It wasn't that game. It was a game where they played great. Everyone stayed healthy. Boom. Ballin actually caught the ball rather than had the ball in his hand and then he kind of trapped it with the ground. That's what happens when it comes down to one game. So even though the gap can be huge, the gap could be 10 points, as Acho or whoever said that, and yet you could still lose 3 out of 10 times, 4 out of 10 times. Just ask the Patriots. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Philadelphia Eagles closing the gap? I mean, another great point is I know a lot of Eagles fans believe that they were the better team against the Kansas City Chiefs in 22, and they lost. And we could say because of the refs, you could say because of the field, but that's my point. There's other things that can happen. So I know a lot of Eagles fans truly believe that the Eagles were better than the Kansas City Chiefs in 22, and they lost. That kind of proves the point right then and there. So should have said that 18 minutes ago, but I didn't. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Philadelphia Eagles? Are any of these other teams closing the gap to the Eagles? And what does it mean? And do you believe that it's, fair game just to be like, yep, the Eagles and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl next year? No hiccups at all for any of these teams involved. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. It's whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.